Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Retail Council of Canada's fourth webinar in the Enabling Retail 2016 webinar series. My name is Patrick Rogerson, Manager of Member Programs, and thank you for attending today. Just for those that are not familiar with WebEx, quickly, we do have a question and answer feature pane on the WebEx that's located on the bottom right-hand side. Please provide your questions throughout the webinar, but we'll also have a point in time at the end of the webinar for you to give your feedback, and we'll be answering your questions at that point. For those that have not been able to attend this webinar, you're more than welcome to email us. We will be doing a recording of this and sending it out post-webinar in the 2 or 3 days afterwards. Please feel free to email or call me directly or our presenter as well, and we'll get back to you as quickly as possible. Quickly, before we do get in our presentation today, I do have a little bit of a plug. We do have our loss prevention conference coming up on Thursday this week. So for those that have not registered as of yet, I strongly encourage you to do so, and hopefully we'll see you there. That said, let's get into our agenda for today. We actually have a presentation from the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, and then we'll follow that up with our question and answer. And I've got the pleasure today of introducing Debbie Gillespie, Coordinator, Accountability and Braille Promotion with the CNIB. So, Debbie, thank you for coming in today.
Thanks a lot, Patrick, and thank you, everyone, for attending the session. I am open and honest, and no question is a bad one, so I look forward to those at the end as well. A little bit about me. I think, and Leroy, you'll see on the screen that Patrick has us in front and center. This is my second guide dog, Leroy. I got him from the United States, as many people do. We do have guide dog schools in Canada, but sometimes you want to play it safe and go somewhere where it's been around for 40 or 50 years. Leroy is 4, and my first guide dog was Nike. She was also a black lab, and I've had Leroy now for 3 years, and his birthday is next week, so he's quite a fellow. I have been in accessibility now since 2009, and I have been working for the library at CNIB. Prior to that, I managed Braille production. I've always done a lot of media work for CNIB and elsewhere. So I'm also currently the Vice Chair of the Advisory Committee for Accessible Transit for TTC this year. So I live the brand, I get the brand, and I tell everyone about the brand. And it's not just about CNIB, it's about the clients that are part of the process. It's all in the planning. When a person with vision loss is embarking on a new adventure, and in this case, we're going to keep it real nice and tight and specific and give you lots of examples so you can get your teeth into it. You're going to go to a location you've never been to. And it's the more planning you do ahead of time, it's kind of like going on a trip to a country you've never been to. So the more planning you do in the beginning, the better prepared you are. And being prepared is one piece, but you also have to think that it isn't always going to go the way you anticipate. So when things happen, you have ideas of plan B, what am I going to do now? I've been in both of these situations. I'm quite comfortable with the unexpected now. It's a lot easier having a guide dog than it was with a cane. By the way, I used the cane for over 40 years, and I'm not anti-cane, white cane, by any stretch of the imagination. If you want to know your space really, really well, you can't beat navigating it with a white cane. You learn a space, you learn its intricacies, you learn its obstacles and what benefits it has, what sounds it provides you, and we'll get into that a bit later on about how to assist people in wayfinding. If you're going to go somewhere and you want to be very efficient, you don't care about the picket fence on your left, or the recycle bin that you might have run into yesterday because you didn't have your dog, and again, we'll get to that shortly as well, then a dog is the way to do it. They both have tremendous advantages. The thing about a dog, if I had to summarize it, is it keeps you safe in unfamiliar environments. So you don't learn the space as well, but you navigate it very efficiently. The customer journey. I mentioned earlier about this planning. You go to the website, you might make a phone call, you might choose social media, ask friends if they've been there before. What obstacles do I have to accommodate on my way? This sort of information. So the customer journey The first visit is a big deal for the end user. Finding the store or service, that is the first goal in your first foray, because that's the first stage of this. You know you want to go there, and you know why you're going there, but yet the staff do not, okay? So just remember, you're going, you know what you want to do there. You're not going to probably go to browse, because it's not very efficient to do that. So when you are looking to go to a facility that you've never been to, things like considerations to consider: location of the transit stops, frequency and variety of transit information that's available. How many buses go there? How often do they run? If I'm finished my business in 20 minutes, do I have to wait an hour to get back home again? I don't think so, especially in the winter. You know, I'm not going to do that.
And Deb, you give a good perspective here, because for those that are kind of using theater of the mind right now to play this out, whether this is the course of your employment going into work every day, or whether you're just going shopping, period, groceries, whatever it is, these are really hard things, I think, in some cases, even for myself, to wrap the mind around. And we had a discussion prior to the webinar, folks, even about individuals that have gone through semi-social experiments, actually living what it's like in the life of a person with a disability, and how very humbling that can be in many cases to have basically your vision lost for a period of time, or not having the ability to speak to an individual and having to meet that accommodation need. And I think this is going to be a good walk through the perspective of, if I can put myself in that person's shoes, it allows me to start to adjust business practices a little bit more.
Absolutely. I always say to people, your journey begins the minute you turn the key in the lock. Because if you're going somewhere, now each of these scenarios has a certain familiarity to you. If you're going to somewhere you've worked, I've worked at CNIB in various locations for about 28 years. But you still need to keep your mental mapping going. The only advantage to that is I know how to get where I'm going. Generally, I know what to expect. So in a way, going to somewhere you go regularly is easier, but that's just where the unexpected happens. Just when you think you're having one of those great Mondays, you know, okay, it's Tuesday today, but, you know, some days, you know, they're just like days from hell. It's just, you know, you just know it's not going to be one of those days. And it doesn't matter how good you are, how familiar you are with it, things happen. So it usually happens because you're familiar with it, because it's like driving to the same Tim Hortons every day, right? You know how to get there, you know where you're going, and then you get there and, I forgot my wallet. And then I got to figure out a way to get out of the drive-through because everybody's behind me. So, you know, it's things like this are always going to happen. We're going to talk now about wayfinding and different types of visual impairment. One of the things that CNIB offers is a session, it's roughly a half a day, where you can come in as a group and have different simulations given to you by people who have vision. A person like me would talk to you near the end, but you know, you want to see what it's like under controlled environments. So we simulate different types of vision loss, and you're seated safely in a chair. So we have vision simulators that we provide, so you can simulate what it's like to have central vision and no peripheral vision. We have simulators that simulate different levels of color blindness. So you can see, oh God, I can't see that display over there because that's the wrong color for me. Or it's just out of my depth of field, I have to turn my head. Or I can't look up that far because I'm only 3 feet tall or 4 feet tall or whatever. So we do that as part of the sensitivity training, a session, introduction to vision loss. And we do offer that service. If you want to know more about that, we can talk about that at the end. Contact me at the end, and we'll deal with that. Or talk to Patrick. And if you want to bring it's better to be done in groups. That way, everybody kind of feeds off each other's experiences, and it's a very safe environment to be done. I'm going to talk about categories of vision loss, 3 broad categories, and they are low vision users, and that's not just people who are CNIB clients. That might be your baby boomer, grandmother, your son, your daughter. It could be a temporary vision loss. Maybe you have had some kind of surgery that has not allowed you to have full vision yet for a couple of weeks or a month. and you have to learn how to function for a while. It's the same thing when you break your leg or you break your arm, or, you know, you think, I thought I could do this and I can't. So, you know, it's just take your time, be patient, and you'll figure it out. Low vision users, probably about 80% of people with vision loss have some functional vision. Me, myself, I have light perception and shadows, so I'm able to see that Patrick is sitting beside me, but I wouldn't know that's Patrick because I can't see the outline of Patrick. I just know there's something there, right? So it's useful in situations I know. It's useful to explore things that I don't, but I still got to go up and touch it just to be safe. Is this safe? Is this a fence or what is it? And by the way, I'm a very curious soul. Information has no bounds. Curiosity has no bounds. I'm an information hound. I need to know. It drives most people crazy, but they're used to it now. I've been like this for over 60 years, so they sort of adjust to it. We've talked about the low vision user. We have the guide dog user. Now, as I mentioned, often many people have some functional vision. Total blindness is not really the majority, but there are those who have that. So don't assume that A, someone can see well enough to follow you, and don't assume that they can't see at all. So always ask. Asking is always a good thing. And don't be afraid to say you don't know how to help. If you're not sure, you know, say, you know, could you, you know, what do you need me to do? You know, how can I assist? Something like that. The person generally knows what they require. The third category is white cane users. There are people who use a cane at night but have great guiding vision during the day, right? So lighting is a big deal, and we're going to get into that very shortly. We've moved from finding the store to getting inside, okay? So we have once inside the store, and it really depends on how much vision loss you have. I'm going to ask Patrick if he's got any questions before we proceed.
Nope, we're good.
We're good, he says. Okay.
But again, I like this transition because, again, we're still going from the customer perspective, although a customer is also a potential employee at some point.
That's right.
Too, but
so this is quite normal. It could be an employee. It could be a temporary employee. It could be a person you've hired for the summer on an internship to see how does this go. I've never hired a person with vision loss before. I'd like to try it. And as long as you know that, the person knows that up front, that works really well.
Now, Deb, let me interrupt on that, because just to put everyone's maybe fears at bay here, is that something that would actually be supported by the CNIB through kind of a trial process for an organization? Because from the HR side of me thinks, okay, maybe that's a little bit dicey for me to try. I don't want the person to feel as though we're trialing this out, and if it doesn't work, we're going to sever their employment at that point in time. We want to be sensitive to the person as well, too, through that. So maybe just kind of quench those fears for us.
Okay. When I'm thinking about an intern process, I'm thinking of a predefined time period where they're hired for. It might be a contract position, for example. So, again, if you wanted that, CNIB, before you even hired this person, as I was doing the scenario with Patrick, supposing you have a short list of candidates, and you really like this candidate, but you don't know how they're going to do it because of their vision loss. Two things can happen. You can be upfront with the person and say, you know, this is the job. I know you've applied. Do you have any suggestions how, if we were to hire you for this position, what do you think we could do to make this easier for you? And that's one side of it. The person would probably give you a list of things to consider, okay, because they know what they require. And they would be upfront and honest, ideally, if that was the case. At the same time, you can contact agencies like CNIB. We have a workplace assessment process that we could come in, whether you are hiring somebody right now or not, we can provide a workplace assessment. It's a lot easier when there's a person in a specific job that you are considering, but even if you're at the consideration stage, this is the job we're considering a person for. What do we need to do for that person to make it easier for them and also easier for the team that they work with? Because it's a very holistic approach. It's not just about the employee. It's about the employer's comfort level and knowledge base. So, you know, the team that the person would work with would receive techniques on how to guide a person with vision loss, or maybe set up the workstation in a way that benefits the person. I can't see if you turn it to my left side. Can we rotate this the other way so that I have better field of view so I can see someone coming up, to talk to me? Or when you do go up to a person, don't just stand there and expect them to recognize you. You might have to knock because they can only focus on their computer screen. So don't assume that they're going to know you're standing there, for example. And that's a simple example. It's something that people do often. I do it too, and I do it to my sighted colleagues, and I'll just stand there and I realize I might have to, look up. So it happens to everybody, but it's crucial that you let the person know that you're there. Hi, it's Jane, do you have a minute? It's not difficult, but it's really necessary. We used to have, I call them squeaky mats, and so whenever somebody came up to your desk, this little sound would happen because they'd stand on it, right? I don't even know if they still exist, but things like that, my luck would be my dog that sat on it, and then I'd think it was a person, but, I'll take my chances on that. But those are things, little simple solutions that CNIB can help with during the workplace assessment phase, and we'll get to that later. We're now inside the store. Yay! This is a good thing. When a person walks in, depending on their visual impairment, they can't do an overview, a quick scan as to what's around them, where am I in relation to the space. So it's great to have some kind of focus point, whether it's the cash line, a service counter, an information desk, something where people can navigate to, within, 100 feet or so, where with a sound carrier, so people know where to go to receive assistance. If I'm going into a store I don't know, I'm going to look for a staff person. I want to find somebody that's going to tell me, answer what I need, because I'm certainly not going to be able to find it. I do not read signage well. I've never been to your store. I don't know how it lays out, but, some of the biggest challenges are the box stores, right? The sound is fast. The aisles are wide, which is good, but up to a point. But how do I know where to go to get service? If I'm going to Rogers Cable or, the Source or in a mall, how do I find your specific space? And malls are a different type of navigation in itself because you've got the entire mall and then you've got to find the entrance to the location you're in. In this case, I've focused on standalone stores, and I probably shouldn't have, but it's something that, getting to the mall is one piece. Getting into the mall is another piece because of the parking lots, and where's the entrance? Where do I find it? And the third piece is finding the store that I'm interested in. And in a case like that, I'm going to look for anybody. I'm going to know where it is roughly, and I'll go there and call security before I leave and say, can you show me where such and such a store is? Because I'm not very patient, really. I'm not. I do my best, but, I just want to get what I want and leave, nothing personal. Wayfinding color for low vision users. We're in the store. Color contrast is a big one. Have definite markers of contrasting information in your store. Your displays, your clear fonts on signage, your non-glare surfaces, indirect lighting or diffuse lighting is great because then a person can not be intimidated, that's the wrong word, distracted by the glare of the lighting. Now, for me, I love skylights because I look up and I count them. When I'm navigating in a mall, I use the skylights above me to count how far down I am. If I'm looking for a certain store that I know, I might say it's the 6th skylight down or something like that because that's what I have to use. I can't read the signs. So I may not ever always be right, and God forbid if the sun's not out or something, but I'll take my chances. But sometimes that's useful. Sounds like a water fountain, oh, that's a good landmark, or the food court. Leroy loves the food court, so I'm always going to find that. That's my guide dog. He'll find that every time. And there's usually a lot of activity there, right? So, escalators, sometimes they make sound. Less of them do nowadays, but that's a big one. Clear fonts on signage. That's a big one. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to make the font, 20 point. But it does mean the contrast needs to be good. So Verdana is good. Something with less tails in it. Tiresias works for low vision users, but Verdana is great for different, and sans serif is somewhat good at times too. So again, if you're not sure of what to use for your fonts, we have CNIB has a publication called Clear Print Guidelines. And for those of you who are graphically minded, they're not fancy, but they are effective. So that's a publication that we sell. Actually, Clear Print Guidelines is free. I think they're all free now, which is a good thing, because, you don't want to pay for accessibility if something can benefit, if it's something that works well. Those guidelines probably should be updated at some point, and if it's on my list to do, and I'll get to it. But the other piece to low vision users is knowing uncluttered aisles. This uncluttered aisles and clear path of travel, it's a big one, and it happens everywhere. And it's something that applies to all types of vision loss. What can I do? Well, you get in the store, you're thinking, oh my God, there's somebody coming in here, and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do, but I know they need my assistance because they're looking lost. So what can I do? Be alert. Watch for customers, even if you're not sure if they, it might be, your aunt or your uncle that could be in this same situation. So look for, if you see somebody's a little hesitant, go up and identify yourself. Say, I'm Dave, I'm Patrick, I'm a staff member here. How can I assist you? It's not complicated. And they'll say, I want to go buy, hockey sticks. Timing's right? Because Team Canada's playing tonight, so I had to throw that in someplace. I really am a sports fan. So they'll take you to the hockey sticks. But the piece to that, and this comes up later, but if you don't know a lot about hockey sticks, and you think that the person knows more than you do, you might say, I'm going to go get somebody who knows more about this than I do, right? Because you're doing, the person can't browse the selection of sticks, right? So they might know exactly the one they're looking for, the size, what color they're looking for, what kind of, there's all kinds of good stuff. So they might know exactly. But if they don't, and if you think that they might need more knowledge than you have, don't hesitate to say, let me go find somebody else who knows more than I do. And you might be able to want to try it on your own, and that's fine. But if you don't feel you can do that well, then don't. Get someone who knows more about it. Wayfinding for guide dog users. This is you, Leroy. Again, closeness of a staff person, information desk, service counter, some place where people can go that they can ask for assistance. And also on the ask for assistance part, if you know it's going to be a longer wait, say, okay, it's going to be maybe 5 minutes, so the person doesn't think that they're forgotten. Remember, they can't see you necessarily, so they don't know what's going on in the store. Generally, people, when they travel to a place they don't know, they try to go in off-peak hours only because they want service, right? I'm not going to be stupid enough to go at Christmas time at the 11th hour, right? Because I know I'm not going to get the service I need, but whether it's for groceries or it's for a product or whatever it is, say, okay, I'm going to get a person, and honestly, if it's more than 5 minutes, go back to the person and say, I'm going to call again, let them know that you didn't forget them. Don't go serving too many customers and forget, because they're still standing there, right? That's a big one, and I know it's easy to do, but then the person is forced to say, excuse me, have you asked for assistance yet? And you don't want to do that. It's difficult for you, and it's difficult for them. So if it's somebody who has a mobility impairment, for example, they might want to offer them a seat. But make sure that you check with them every 5 minutes or so, just to make sure that all is good. That way we're good. Again, we talk about clear path of travel. In the case of a guide dog and a white cane user, and even a low vision user at some point, make sure the aisle is wide enough to walk two abreast. So in my case, it might be two abreast plus my guide dog, right? So I'll heel Leroy, and I might take your arm above the elbow, called sighted guide technique, and we'll get into that. One more thing about guide dogs, tempting as it is, I know, don't talk to the dog, talk to the handler. So when you're directing the person, say the person is following you with the dog, and they've decided, no, I'll walk with you, I'll walk behind you, because you know the way and I don't. Or maybe the aisle isn't quite wide enough for the three of you. Say, we're going to turn to the left in about 30 feet, so that the person has time to give the dog the command. Don't get right to the aisle intersection and say turn left, because that way, the person has to give the command right now, and the dog gets confused. When am I turning? It's back there, and I passed it. So give at least 20 feet notice so the person can say Leroy left or Leroy right or whatever. Also, watch out for doorways, stairs, and obstacles. And this gets into more so with cane users, but the dog has to be, there's a certain way of handling dogs over certain types of environments, and the person knows what to do, so don't worry about that. Also, you don't have to probably say, watch out for the pole, because the dog should guide the person around it. You might want to say there's a pole coming up or there's something coming up, and that's helpful, because the person will know what to do. But the guide dog has to have room for him or her and the person to walk side by side. So that's the biggest piece. Wayfinding for white cane users. We're moving on. Are we good, Patrick?
We're good.
Okay. I got to make sure that my handler knows what he's up to here. Many cane users, many people have usable vision, okay? They may not be able to see in your store, though. Maybe the lighting is not conducive to their visual impairment. So they may ask to take your arm. Again, finding a place to stop and ask for assistance near your entrance is a good thing. You know, some of these places you walk into and you have no idea. There's a display right in front of you, for example. So get a pathway to a location that's semi-sensible so that people can get there. Or, again, if there's someone watching the doorway, you know, when someone comes in, you know, do you need assistance? You know, I'm here to, you know, I'm so-and-so. I'm Michelle from, you know, RCC. How can I help you? I think I've covered everybody here. Yeah.
Now, and Deb, I think about it as well, too, when I've just walked in, many organizations, you get a Walmart where there's a greeter at the front door, Home Depot, their cashes are generally right there as well, too, so you've got that good customer interaction. A Toys R Us, you'll have that as well, too. And then you might get into larger stores. I think about Clothiers or a Sears or an HBC. You got to go a little bit deeper sometimes to find a person. And what you'll generally have through the main aisleways is a customer sales rep or an associate that's going from one department to the other, and you get that interaction. Really from this standpoint, whether it's guide dogs, white cane, limited vision, we're talking about making sure that any customer service rep is incorporating into their mantra or training, kind of heads on a swivel, looking around just to provide overall customer service. But I wanted to ask a sensitive question here. When is it too much customer service? Because often in the past when I was that type of a person, and many who are on the call have groomed themselves from the bottom up in retail here, you want to provide full customer service from when you meet that person until they're ready to go to the cash and potentially even walk them out to their vehicle, depending on what the nature of the business is. When does it become overbearing potentially?
It's all how you handle that. Too much might be the way they speak to you. Too much might be, you know, are you able to do this? Like, the question is a good one, but too much might be, you know, do you need me to do this? Like, if you're not sure, ask, but just ask them as if you were asking your elderly aunt. Okay, that, I mean, it'll come naturally to you, and if you'll know if it's too much. Watch for the body language, right? Like, no, I got it. No, I'm good. Or, you know, also you're not sure. So, especially if you have good, useful vision, you're not sure, but then all of a sudden, you know, they get into an area that's changed lighting and contrast, and they can't function for a second. So, you know, turn around, say, you're with me? Yeah, I'm good. And they might decide to take your elbow at that point and say, you know, it's kind of stop and go here, my guide dog can't navigate, or cane users with very little vision are most likely going to take your elbow because they don't know where they're going, and they can't keep up with the speed. Another bit about walking with a person with a vision loss, you walk at your pace and they'll tell you if it's okay or not. Don't assume that they're old and feeble and they can't keep up. And we teach that as part of the sensitivity training that we offer at CNIB. We show you how to, you know, navigate stairs, and we show you how to show a person a seat, or just walking down the hall. Like, it's not complicated, but use your own common sense. You know, if you're not sure, say, is this pace okay? You know, and they'll say, yep, I'm good. No, I'm not. And if they start pushing you forward on your elbow, chances are good that you're not walking at your normal pace, and they know that. A personal story, I used to ride the bus many years ago in the 80s with a person who was guidance counselor or something like that, and I said to her finally, she really meant well, I said, look, You just concentrate on walking and I'll adjust. And she said, oh, I never thought of that, and she just was so delighted. Now, there's a couple of caveats there. Always stop at the stairs. Don't walk down. Make sure the person is with you. When you do sighted guides, you're going to be slightly ahead of them anyway, so say stairs going up or stairs going down, okay? So make sure they're ready. Ask if they want to take the railing. They might not, right? So, you know, going through a door, we're going through the door, turn to your left. You know, give the same command so the person knows what to expect as you're moving. If the aisleway is too narrow, they'll walk behind you, and there's a process for that. So those are things that we teach, okay? And when we teach that, you can actually now go to the CNIB YouTube channel, which is on the slide, and you can, and when you get this on your archive, I've taken you right to the Introduction to Sighted Guide, right? So you don't have to, you can browse the site if you want, but me being in my super efficient way, there's Introduction to Sighted Guide, and then there's, and unfortunately it's me you're going to see there, but you know, it's okay. We'll get over it together. Navigating the store. We're in the store, you've got assistance, you established a relationship with you as the staff person, and we might be talking about the weather, what's coming on TV or whatever, okay? So the idea being that be comfortable, just be yourself, be natural. You've got to be a people person, though. If you're not a people person, chances are you don't really want to help people in general, so make sure you're in the right role to begin with. But navigating the store, clear communication is essential. There are some places I have been in my lifetime that will provide you a person, but they don't read very well. They don't speak the language very well. It's not their fault and it's not yours. But they really want to provide you assistance, but they've got to provide you quality assistance that you aren't going to get frustrated, and neither is the staff person, because they're not going to have a good time doing it. And you're not going to have a good time because you have found it too difficult to communicate. And it's nothing to do with culture. It's just, you know, it might be a person who's just started there and they don't know this product staff very well. They don't know the store, so they're going to waste a lot of time wandering around looking for what you're looking for. And, you know, you want to provide somebody a quality experience. And if you don't think that you're the person to provide that, like I said earlier, if you know somebody who knows more about hockey sticks, you know, find somebody who does, okay? So the person probably, odds are good they know what they're looking for, right? They may not know where it is or what's out there, but they might know where it is. Like I said, as you're walking with the person, indicate turns, stairs, doorways, and obstacles in the path of travel. Now, you don't have to talk about something that's 60 feet away because they're not there yet, right? So, again, it's pretty common sense, right? Know your product or service. We talked about that. They may ask you to read the product information on the package because they can't, right? They might take it home and scan it with their iPhone because there's apps that do that, and they'll probably read about it on the web before they went there. They probably have done that already too. But there might be a warning, don't use this in closed environments that they don't know. Or, you know, be sure to be careful, don't lose all the screws, this is what's expected. So the person will tell you what they need, but the person may have to read off the package, right? That's a big one. So be prepared for the unexpected that way. Okay, we've got the product, we probably bought more than we were gonna because we had such a great time with you, and you showed us something else. Oh, by the way, there's this one too. So if the person isn't sure what they want, this brings up another piece I didn't put in here, but you get talking and say, well, this is good too. I've used this one, personal experience is good, but we're too much customer service. You might like this one better because you're vision loss. That's crazy, right? The person probably knows what they want, but they might want to know what other options are out there. Like if you're buying, I don't know, a cleaning mop. There's so much options out there now. Like you can't just go and buy one. They're all different. They all do different stuff, and one's for hardwood, and, you know, one's for outside. And, yes, I've just gone through this process, you can tell, can't you? So, you know, just the days of going to buy what you want, there's so many choices now. So,
well, and you got the element of upselling as well, too. And
yeah.
In some cases, that's a mandate for an organization. They'll say to the staff, this is a quota, potentially in some, or it's a make sure that you do tack on or mention there's a warranty for a specific product.
Yeah, absolutely. And the person might take it. You know, if they think it's a durable item, they say, yeah, I think I'll do that. You know, so that's a big one. Let the person know what their options are. You know, and again, that's because you know your product. You know that space. and, you know, this one's on sale, but this one's not. So also let them know, you know, if you want this one, this is its benefits, this is what this one has. So do a quick comparison so they get it. There also might be times when a person wants to look at the actual product. Blister packs, Pastor and I were talking, and one of the things that really bugs me are blister packs, because I can't feel what's inside. And, you know, and to open the things, I'm not alone in this, because, you know, you get in there and you, how do I get it out? The customer may ask you to open one of the packages, you know, just so they can have a handle of it. And do I like the weight? And do I like where my hands go on it? And, you know, how does this fit my fingers? And, you know, it could be anything. Maybe they're buying a specific size of some type of screwdriver, and they want to know, I want to hang on to it. You know, how heavy is it? You know, so often a person offered to open the package. Like, I always ask if I can do that. And I'm sometimes met with, I don't know, or I have to go ask somebody. Take charge. Say, yeah, we can do this. If you really have a good feeling, they're probably going to buy it because you went the extra mile. The odds are good. Okay, the odds are really good that they're going to purchase from you, and they'll want to see you again because you were so good at what you did. Okay, we got our products. We're moving now. Business is done. Completing your purchase. This is where it can get a little dicey, and I was going to add more to this piece regarding point-of-sale terminals. There's a whole piece I can do about point-of-sale terminals, and that's for another day, but generally speaking, and I'll keep it broad and simple because I like simple, my brain works that way. There's two types of point-of-sale terminals, general broad categories. There's the ones with the pin pad, and then there's strictly touchscreen. Now, if you want to tell somebody ahead of time, don't take them to the cache and abandon them there, okay? They are going to want to finish this product with you if they can. You know, unless, if you're going to do that, if you need to get back to the floor, make sure that you've got another person who's going to take charge at this point. It's better if you do it because they've been with you probably for half an hour, you know, or maybe more, or maybe less. But, you know, it's kind of better. You finish a process with the same person. And airports are bad for this. You start out in one place and you go to a different zone. And I've just got the person trained to do sighted guide, and we're walking along. Oh, I have to pass you off to my colleague Dave. You know, and then Dave passes you to Michelle. And I'm thinking, oh my God, like, you know, and I get this. There's security reasons why. But, you know, it's a problem, you know. I've just got used to this guy. Maybe we were having a conversation. Now I've got to go now because this is where my zone ends, and I get it. I get that. But again, if you're going to pass off to another person, make sure the person's prepared ahead of time. And don't go and say, okay, I'm going to pass off to Dave. Now, Dave, this is what you got to do now, okay? And Dave says, okay. So this is so and on. He'll introduce himself. Say, what can I do? I'm going to complete the purchase. But now back to the point of sale. You're standing in the cash. It's your turn to pay, and the cashier's there, and you're there. Now, sometimes, if I'm on my own and I'm well known, the cashier will assist. Okay, you're going to need assistance if you're going to use a point of sale terminal. Two reasons. One, you can't read the prompts perhaps. So you don't know what to do next because every machine is different. Every prompt is different. When do I enter my tax? How do I enter this? So what I tend to do, first of all, tell the person it's a total touch screen point of sale. So they're not going to have the opportunity, so that way they can decide, I'm going to pay cash. Okay, I don't want to use a card. I want to pay cash. Hopefully they got the cash in their pocket. But that way they don't have to enter a PIN. So if it's a total point touchscreen process, I don't want to tell you my PIN, you know, and I don't think you want to know my PIN. And I know, you know, everybody gets uncomfortable with it. And you know, thinking about it, it's a difficult process. If it has a PIN pad, take the purchase right to the point where the person enters the PIN and say, do you want it? Now you can enter your PIN. Here's the machine. And some people, and also have the machine, like some places you got to go all the way around the other side because the machine doesn't reach, right? Like, and then you're squeezed into this little space to enter your PIN, and my guide dog doesn't fit, and, you know, he's on my arm, and I've got his leash around my wrist because he doesn't fit there. And then I discovered that the PIN pad, there are CSA standards on PIN pads, and I'm sure you know those, the raised dot on the 5 for orientation, where the OK button is, where the cancel button is. But again, if there's prompts there, don't leave them, tell them what they need to do. Take them, don't leave them at the OK button, so they have to press OK first. Because ask them first, this is what the purchase price is, this is what you bought, okay? Okay, yes, press OK. So maybe you need to review the bill, right? So this is what you bought. You don't necessarily have to say what each item costs, because you probably did that when you were walking around the store with them. And that's the advantage of you helping this person through it, because you know what you told them. The cashier will let them know the total. You say, yeah, I'm good, okay, and here's the machine. You can enter your PIN pad. And chances are, is this the PIN pad? Yes. Is this the OK button? Yes. Don't say it's the green one, because the green one, they may not be able to have color, right? So say where it is. Say it's the bottom right-hand corner or the top left or wherever it is on the machine. Because if you say it's the green one, you know, they may not get that, right? I mean, you might, but you might not. So also, when they press OK, they're probably going to step back and they've entered their PIN. And I tend to enter PINs too quickly, because some machines don't take my speed of PIN. So, but it's okay. So then you've got your PIN, you paid for your stuff. It's time to leave. You're all done. We're exiting the store. We're on our way, and Patrick's changed the slides. I saw the flash going. Okay, so you're leaving. Offer to assist the person to the exit, because where the exit door is may not be where they entered. It might be, but it might not be. Exiting, you're on your way. Say, where can I assist you to? Are you going to the street? Don't leave them in an open space where there's nothing to, you know, nearby. Don't leave them in a parking lot. And a lot of this makes sense, right? But make sure that they're in a safe place. Like, don't leave them where cars are going to be whizzing by and, you know, they're not sure where they are, and can I stand here or whatever, because then they'll know. You don't have to help them to the bus stop. If it's nearby, you know, you might, but that, again, is up to you and this person that you've already established your relationship with, right? That's a big one, because you're quite comfortable with each other now, right? You've probably spent the last half an hour together, so you're pretty good. And if you don't know, say, how can I assist? What do you need me to do? You know, leave them in a safe space. But the biggest piece to this right here is you've laid the groundwork for that person to come back, and if they'll ask for you. You know, I have relationships with people in stores that I wouldn't necessarily go to on my own, because, you know, they know what I like to buy, they know my clothes or whatever, and usually I go clothes shopping with family, but say I can't. I said to a woman once, a sale person in the store, retail, and I said, you know, I would come here on my own, because you know what I like, you know what looks good, you have good color sense, you know, and she stood there and said, wow, I've really done something well. I said, yeah, you have. You know, that's a big one. You know, if they ask you, don't be taken aback. They say, do you usually work weekdays, or, you know, don't be surprised. They're asking because they liked working with you. Also, now that you've done this, you can assist other staff. So you can provide each organization, and I know it's mandatory in many of your agencies and services, to have staff training. If you want CNIB assistance with that, we can come out, help with that, or it's best that you come to CNIB. We can make a controlled environment for you. But if you say you did want, say you're a service, you're a store like a Canadian Tire or Toys R Us, and you really want to know, am I doing the right thing? Is our store set up for people with vision loss? Somebody will come out and give you a quick idea. It'll probably be an orientation and mobility specialist that comes out. And they'll say, here's what you could do. It's pretty good, but you could do this. So it doesn't mean you have to do it. And I suspect there's a fee, there's a charge for it, but I don't know what it is. If you really were interested in that, then I would put you in touch with who handles it. It's not me. But, you know, I'm not going to say there's no charge for it. But I know that it's nominal. Okay, so I don't know how it works. I'm not in that side of CNIB, and I don't want to talk about what I don't know and lead you astray, because I'm good at doing that, you know, if I'm not careful. But that's a big deal, right? I'm going to stop here and see if Patrick has any questions, because next we're going to move to employment.
We've got a couple questions, but we're going to, respectfully to those that are on the phone, we'll hold off on those questions until the end. There's a juicy one on there as well, too. We're going to wait to the Q&A so that we can keep people hooked in the whole time here. Sorry to everyone on the phone.
Okay, guys, I am too, but I'll make it quick for you. there's different scenarios of employment, and I'll take you through these journeys, but they're really short. The first one is you have an employee already who's experiencing vision loss, whether it's permanent or temporary. If that person has come to you, or if you've noticed it and you have a good relationship, if you're their supervisor or colleague and you say, you know, is there something I can do, the answer is probably yes, and the person may say, yeah, I'm having a little bit of trouble, or I've had eye surgery and this is what I'm not capable to do right now. You can contact CNIB and request what I mentioned earlier is a workplace assessment. And what's involved in that? Okay, so we'll stop there for a second because the other type of scenario is you are an HR person and you've screened your candidates and you realize that somebody may have vision loss. Now, we can get into disclosure of disability. That's a whole kettle of fish, and I know it is. And some people will readily disclose, some will not. In my case, I kind of had to. But somebody who has good vision, maybe they have albinism, and they have really good vision, they may not want to disclose until they get hired. And that can be its own potential problem. But regardless, if they have disclosed, or if you're wondering about it, and I know when I was a manager, there's certain things you are able to ask in an interview, and there's certain things you are not. And that is a problem. It's become more of a problem in the last 10 years probably than it was when I started working in the 70s. So you're getting the sense that I'm not a young soul, but I'm still wise, I hope. So if you're not sure about the position, you can also ask CNIB to do a workplace assessment and say, this is the job we're considering hiring a person for. We would want to know if there are accommodations that we should make now that will benefit this person or anyone else with vision loss. So it's a good thing to know, at the very least, how accessible is my workspace. You know, where are they seated? What's the seating like? What's the lighting like? Little things like that. CNIB comes in, and it's they do it a very detailed analysis in the sense that they will think about it from the person's perspective. Now, it's easier if the person is already there because they will ask the employee who's already there and you separately, what type of visual impairment do you have, right? Because that depends on what changes you would make, right? So it might be you need to obtain the information about vision loss if the person is already at your workspace. The job description is crucial. So, for example, if the person's going to have to sort mail all day, they have to be able to see it, right? Like that's obvious, but you know, just don't assume it just happens like magic, right? So things like that. If the person is going to be using a PC all day and they are low vision, do they need magnification? Technology is a big one. If a person uses screen reading technology, which is the computer speaks aloud what's on the screen, what options do I have for that? What programs are you using, and how accessible are they to people with low vision? Some companies use Citrix servers, for example, and some of that's accessible, some is not, right? So you need to know what changes do I need to make, or can I make? It doesn't mean you can. Sometimes you can't. But at least everybody knows. Everybody's upfront about it. We may have to change your job slightly because you can't do this part of the task. And you're open, and CNIB is open with you and open with the employee that's already there. So again, the employee knows the workplace assessment's taking place, and we're there to help the employer, and the employee gets a report, and so does the employer. There are different reports, so that's a big piece. The other huge piece to this, and I can't underestimate it, is sensitivity training for team members, for relevant staff, right? So we have, you might work in a team of, 10 people. And at one time in my employment life, only the employee got the benefit of training, right? But your colleagues had no idea. How do you do this? What do I do? How can I assist? Can I help you to the washroom? Because they didn't know what was available or how to assist comfortably. So that's taken care of as part of the workplace assessment, because it's about all of you meshing together with this person's visual impairment, whether it's recent or whether it's always been. The other piece that happens after the sensitivity, recommendations are made both to the employee and to the employer. So maybe the employee needs to do different things or something differently. Maybe they need to move their workstation. Some of the recommendations work for both of you. Some work for one or the other. So those are pieces that CNIB tells you about. And again, I don't do this, but I have colleagues that do. And this was the part this morning I checked with the people that do it. But it's a very open, full disclosure type of thing. The employee knows what's going on, so there's no secrecy about it, and the employer knows what they need to do or know ahead of time. So it's all good. Follow-up. After a while, after the changes have been made, if necessary, and they're not always big changes. Sometimes it's a real simple switch that, maybe the employee just has to change seats, right? Maybe they can't sit there because it's too hard to get to that cubicle. It's in the middle of nowhere. Maybe we do something, we color code it so that they can see it. Some of the things like that are simple fixes. They're not always mega dollars. Some can be, I won't deny that, and usually if you need a screen reading technology to work with a specific program that is not accessible, that's where the dollars can come in, but there are processes in place to help with that. And again, I'm not going to go there because I don't know how every province works with that. But if you think that you'd want a workplace assessment for employees, I would suggest you contact your local CNIB office, closest to you. So if it's in Ontario or if it's in Toronto, it's here. If you're in Regina, it's in Regina. So don't call me. Call your local office because they're just as good as me. That's what I have for presentation. I'm going to open it up for questions. I'll let Patrick take it from here, and I hope I have good answers for you.
Sure. So we're just going to go on pause for 1 minute, folks, as questions filter in, and then we're going to have them read to Debbie, and we'll tackle them one at a time. So just a brief pause, and we'll be right back with you.
So our first question for you is, what are some tools or resources that can be leveraged when developing internal policies and procedures?
Okay, there are a lot of those, and many of them come from the legislation pieces. We do have the AOTA requirements in Ontario. Other provinces are developing this. Other resources that can be utilized are your local CNIB offices. If you don't know an answer, or you want to know something, you call your office or call me, because a lot of this is very specific to where you are currently located. As far as resources, one of the good ones, I mentioned earlier the Clear Print guidelines. That's a big one, and that's available from Shop CNIB. So if you go to the website and look up Shop CNIB, it's in there. If you do not find it, then you can contact me, and I'll make sure you get a copy of it sent to you. Another great one for built environment, signage, navigating spaces, etc., is Clearing Our Path. It's a website. It's been recently developed. ClearingOurPath.ca is one for navigation uses. It deals with outdoor spaces, indoor spaces, workplace adjustments. When you get a copy of that, it's free, it's only online because architects primarily use it along with people designing spaces. There are companies out there that can provide you audits for your space. EnAbling is one. That's a great resource. They also help you through the legislation piece as well. They're actually located in London, my hometown, and we have seen IB use them as well for our Clearing Our Path website. So they can help you with websites, they can help you with policies on accessibility, and they do it in plain language, right? Like you want to know what you got to do. If you want to study the law, you've been a lawyer. But as long as you're aware of what you need to do. So the first thing is you need to do an environmental scan of your space and compare it to AOTA, compare it to Accessibility Directorate guidelines, see where you stand in the process of accessibility. The Accessibility Ontario site has an accessibility quiz. It's a great little feature, and it's simple to complete, and it takes very little time to do. So it lets you know where you are on the spectrum of accessibility. I think of it like a bar graph. So in this area, I'm really good, in this area, I'm not so good. In web accessibility, I'm not so good, but at customer service, I'm great. So, you know, the 5 principles of AOTA, and I'm not going to go into them. Everyone has its own accessibility challenges. Those are some resources. If you want more and you want to be specific about what you need, policy is a big deal. So if you follow the law, you can't be wrong. If you're not clear, if it's a bit foggy, then check it out. Contact your local accessibility office, the accessibility in your province, or contact CNIB in your local area. If it's advocacy and accessibility policies you're looking for, it'll probably come back to me right now anyway. But this should help you develop what you need. So go with the law first. When we do it for TTC and Metrolinx here in Ontario, they follow the law first, but their aim is to go above the law. So an example of this is using the Presto card machines. Well, yeah, they're kind of like point-of-sale terminals. And yeah, when they came out, we weren't sure what was going on, and I was very cynical about them. And I gave the designers a very difficult time about them. And I said, you know, you got to have some kind of audio because there's no way people can read these prompts. So use your common sense. You can figure out what you don't know, but there are, like EnAbling will give you a workshop on accessibility. There are several companies out there that do it as well. We used to at CNIB do courses in accessibility, but now that it's moved on beyond 2009, 2010, and we're already into the second phase of web accessibility, we don't offer that anymore. We still do the sensitivity training piece. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. So we've got time for 2 more questions, folks, just to make sure that we're on point for everyone's day. Michelle?
So our next question is, as a person with a visual disability, what would be your biggest request of the businesses in which you shop?
I think the biggest one is to have staff that watch out for customers. Like, I don't like going into a store and having to wander around until I find a cash register, and I'll ask at the cash now. Actually, it's a lot better than it used to be honest. But first of all, they were surprised I came by myself into the store without a family member, you know, and that's kind of gone now in most cases. But finding your store, like there's places that you'll shop, that I would shop, that are just easier to get to. There's restaurants I'll frequent just because they're easier to find, right? The staff are great, they're good, they know me. Blister packs, I mentioned that already, I hate them because I can't see what's inside. Like, you know, give me a break, open it, let me see it. There's probably hundreds of others. Point-of-sale terminals, I wish I could do the entire transaction if there was an audio equivalent. That would be a big one for me. But, you know, again, that's costly, and I don't want to keep people in line behind me waiting while I listen to the navigating in the menu. Another good one is standardized point-of-sale terminals. So on some of them, you know, the tin pad's the same. But then you got to press another button, who knows where, to complete your transaction. If it's a restaurant, where do I leave my tip? It's the sequence and the questions and the prompts are different everywhere I go, right? So if I go to the same place, I've got it. But, you know, every new place, I ask because I don't want to be frustrated. And, you know, people will often, most people are really helpful. They'll say, okay, press the third button down from the left, like, okay, I got it now, but am I doing it right? And by the way, if a person asks you to watch the screen while they're putting in their information, go ahead. They won't let you watch it for the PIN, but give them the prompts. If they really want to do the whole process, read them the screen, let them press the buttons. We're all good.
Excellent. So our last question is, clear of path, glare on floor, avoiding items in aisleways are all great points. What is CNIB's involvement with AODA to make this law versus best practice?
CNIB is a member of the consumer advocacy group that helped develop AODA. We still do that on our advocacy and outreach piece, and right now that's just me, but I think that'll be changing, particularly what province you live in, and obviously the person asking is from Ontario. David Lepofsky, we meet with him regularly. Many of you have seen him on the agenda on TVO, and we actually host his AODA website on our servers, but again, we don't control his content. He does. So, when he wants something uploaded, that's where it goes. The other piece to that is, things happen if things move along. So CNIB is always involved. We're always contacted by Accessibility Directorate of Ontario. I know them all fairly well there, so I'm often called down. Each city, by the way, has something called an Accessibility Advisory Committee, AAC, in Ontario. It's mandated, and there's always clients on those from CNIB. Sometimes it's CNIB agency representation. So CNIB is involved in it. Anytime a brief is asked for, CNIB puts one in, particularly when it comes to the Ontario government. And again, I'm speaking primarily Ontario because I'm here, and that's one of the frustrating pieces of this. I can't cover the whole country, and I've recommended that every province have a me in it.
Maybe this is a good way to change that question then. If we're forecasting a little bit and we take what could happen in Ontario as a best practice for other provinces and educate us on this, do you see that there could be a standard that could develop eventually that would say for any type of a retailer, here's how your aisles need to be managed? Outside of all the building code pieces we've talked about in some of our previous webinars, here's what you have to keep in the way of space requirements, even beyond the fire code, to make sure that it's an accessible environment. Anything like that coming down the pipe potentially?
Yes, that's part of clearing our path. If you get that, it's an online publication. We left it online. We've done it different ways. We've had online version, we've had PDF versions, and we've had hard copy only versions. Because the legislation and standards are dynamic, we have elected on a national level to keep it online only at this point, but you are able to print out the sections that you need. So go to clearingourpath.ca, and right now my colleague is at the TAC trade show in Toronto handing out Clearing Our Path information cards. So you can go there. It's in French and English. You can go and read to your heart's content. I might add that it's a very accessible website for people using screen readers because you can navigate to the sections you want. I grew up in the day where reading was like unrolling a roll of toilet paper. You had to start at the beginning and go to the end, and you couldn't skip through like you can turning a print page. But the days of digital readers, web content accessibility guidelines have allowed for free-flowing navigation. So if I want to go to Chapter 6, I can go to Chapter 6 and only read Chapter 6. I might add a little bit more. People talk about Braille. How much Braille is used today? I was going to mention earlier and I forgot to, but generally I created this PowerPoint. Patrick inserted it into his segment, and he did some things to it that you obviously were readily apparent, and he did it on purpose, changed the color scheme deliberately, just because he was a very creative fellow. But I always have a Braille copy of my presentation, and I do it on file cards. So I'm able to skip through as the slides change. I change file cards, and because I've been caught too many times where the power's gone out. I also use a Braille display hooked up to a computer, and I run the PowerPoint and read the Braille display so I know where I am in the presentation.
I think it's important to remind everyone that there's still those technological advancements. And also we can go to kind of some of the basic tools that have still been used traditionally, and those can be brought into the employment setting more than anything else. So it's a good reminder of the simplistic tools that are out there as well as more complex ones we can use now.
Yeah. One of the pieces about employment is that 80%, 85% of the blind people employed are Braille users. This just happens. They can access information quickly. They can jot notes down. I can't imagine you not being able to jot something down. So there's portable ways to do that. Only roughly 10% of the visually impaired population read Braille at this point. We're going to do some research to see if that figure is still substantiated. But those that do really rely on it, especially if you're deaf-blind, right? Because you need that. That's your way of communication. So there's a lot of technology coming out now down the pipe to assist with that. When should you use Braille? When should you not use Braille? We can talk about that if you call, and we can ask and talk about it further. But those are bits. There are building code rules about when you use Braille in elevators and directional signage, things like that. But again, that's a whole topic unto itself, is Braille.
Perfect. Well, Debbie, thank you very much for coming today. This has almost been a training session for people, and it's somewhat what we received in the way of feedback from last year from those that were attending our 2015 Enabling Retail Series. So I think you've given people a better window to look at how do we move forward more on the customer service training today, but a lot of that can be ported over to the employment side as well, too. So I really appreciate you. Leroy a little bit as well, but he's been sleeping almost the whole time, coming down, because this really provides our members a lot of insight, and we can't thank you enough.
Pleasure to be here.
For everyone that's on our call today, we will be making sure that the webinar is provided within the next 3 to 4 days. With our loss prevention conference, we'll have a little bit of a delay sending it out to everyone, but we thank you for attending today, and we hope this has been a benefit not only for your customer base, but also for your employees in the future. Have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you for webinar number 5 on developmental disability accessibility needs.